Contrary to popular belief, Chinese history is not short of women in position of power and leadership. If you are in the West, the first that come to your mind would probably be Hua Mulan, while for those in the Sinosphere, Wu Zetian or perhaps Mu Guiying would likely be more representative of the archetype of the female main character. Or perhaps if you fancy a female version of Jack Sparrow, the pirate queen Zheng Yisao, whose story is rife for a silver screen trilogy, would interest you. There are enough historical strong female characters to satisfy Disney's DEI quota for years. But the female hero I wanted to have a chat with you about today is perhaps the greatest and the oldest of them all, but also the most mysterious. Her name is Fuhao, who lived 3,300 years ago during the time of King Wu Ding of Shang, and is also one of his three consorts. Fuhao's mystery stems from the fact that she was completely absent from Chinese historical records. Yet we have uncovered a large amount of archaeological evidence in Shang Dynasty oracle bones referring to an important person called Fuhao. This is an anomaly because the detailed and continuous records of the Chinese historiography means that if you dug up a tomb complex and are able to date it, the owner of the grave would usually be in the text, waiting for your identification. Fuhao's case was the opposite, baffling historians for decades since the discovery of the existence of the oracle bones. That is until 1976, when archaeologists discovered the tomb of Fuhao in a completely undisturbed condition. Of the roughly 1,800 bronze, jade, and bone grave goods unearthed, you wouldn't have guessed how extraordinary in life she was. In fact, she was buried like a typical queen, with ritualistic bronzes, cosmetics, jewelries, but perhaps with a touch of class, as she has a habit of collecting antiques dating to at least 1,000 years before her time from the Longshan culture buried along with her. Other than two bronze ceremonial axe heads, very little in her tomb informs us of her martial exploits. But matching the oracle bones found in her grave to oracle bones found elsewhere, historians are able to piece together the puzzle of a warrior priest queen that wears many hats. As a general, she leads a military campaign against the Tufang circled here. The people of Tufang would not appear again in the oracle bones after their defeat by Fuhao. She also participated in warfare against the Ba circled here, possibly the descendants of the Sanxingdui culture. Fuhao executed an ambush with her husband Wu Ding, leading the Ba into the snare, defeating them. However, historical records tells us that the Ba would continue to exist for another 1,000 years, surviving even the fall of the Shang before succumbing to Qin during the Zhou dynasty. I talked about this in brief in this earlier video. She also led campaigns against the archenemy of Shang, the Qiang people of the northwest. The animosity between the Qiang and the Shang would eventually lead to the downfall of the Shang, but this is a story for another time. While historians are undecided if Fuhao was also the high priestess of Shang, or that she was actually the high priestess who so happened to also marry the king, she nonetheless headed significant ritualistic worships that are central to Shang life, with significant state-related ritualistic bronze like this Simu Xin Ding buried with her. Due to her military successes, King Wu Ding also enfeoffed her with her own land holdings. The oracle bone records that she not only lived apart from the king in her own land, she was even recorded as paying tribute to the king of Shang, her husband. She even bore the king at least a son, Prince Jie, the eldest prince of King Wu Ding, but for reasons unexplained, Prince Jie never succeeded the throne. In fact, there is a distinct possibility that Fuhao died in childbirth at the age of 33, as oracle bone inscriptions records the king attempting to divining her fate in labor. As for why she was not mentioned in the histography, I suspect there are three primary reasons. First, as Chinese society progresses in complexity, the role of women becomes more specialized. And by the time the scribes were copying and summarizing Shang history, it is at least 1,000 years after the time of Fuhao. And without access to the oracle bones that we have today, they may have trouble putting a face, let alone a gender, to this Fuhao character. And most scribes, being of Confucian training, perhaps has difficulty believing or even reasons not to promote a woman that doesn't observe the boundary of behavioral propriety. Second, the records of the grand historian by Sima Qian also treats the Shang in a rather brief manner, only 35 paragraphs, compared to that of the Zhou, which has 82 paragraphs, and a further 72 paragraphs zooming into the state of Qin within Zhou dynasty. Also, out of the 35 paragraph for the Shang, one-third of it was dedicated to Shang Tang, the founder of Shang dynasty himself, then glossing through the subsequent 9 kings, and then spending only 3 paragraphs talking about Fu Hao's husband, King Wu Ding's adventure pretending to be a commoner, and the chance meeting with a person named Fu Yue, who was then made prime minister. Now, there is a very interesting theory suggested by a famous YouTuber that there is a possibility that the historians may have conflated Fu Yue with Fu Hao. While this is interesting to consider, there is currently absolutely no evidence to support this suggestion. Finally, there is the distinct possibility that we know a lot more about Shang than the historians leading up to Sima Qian did, as we have first-hand written evidence of divination questions written by people around Fu Hao and Wu Ting, not as narratives, but as a tool for divination for important state affairs, providing details that Sima Qian could only dream of. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for a Netflix adaptation of Fu Hao, the warrior, the queen, the wife, and the mother.